In a mere 24 words, Stephen Crane summed up one of humankind's greatest fears. Welcome to a reading, summary, and analysis of A Man Said to the Universe. A man said to the universe, "Sir, I exist." "However," replied the universe, "the fact has not created in me a sense of obligation." So this is one of those poems that's so short you can probably memorize it in just a couple of minutes. However, that doesn't mean we should ignore one of the golden rules of reading poetry, that you need to understand every word in the poem, especially for shorter poems. So make sure you check out the definitions if there's anything you're unfamiliar with. In terms of poetic devices, there's not a whole lot. I guess you get a rhyme with universe and universe, but it's just a repeated word, so it's not much of a rhyme. However, we see line breaks on display here, and in fact, I have another video specifically on line breaks, and this is one of the poems that I cite in it, because there's not much that Crane's working with outside of line breaks. And usually when we're studying poetic devices, we want to see that form fits function sort of thing, so the poet is using this device because it supports the meaning behind the poem. And one of the things that jumps right out at me is that one of these lines, the second line, is incredibly short. And this line is the quote from the man. The man in this poem represents all of humanity. We shout into the universe, but the universe doesn't need to care. Just because we have a voice doesn't mean that the universe is listening, is another way to think about it. Now again, this is Stephen Crane's worldview here, or at least in this poem, the worldview that he's exploring. Crane comes from an era of literature in the United States known as Realism and Naturalism, and you see a lot of nihilism in that. You look at some of Stephen Crane's other works, The Open Boat, Red Badge of Courage, are two examples that come right to mind, and they're not necessarily encouraging or uplifting. Even if you jump back into like the sort of melancholy and depressing works of Romanticism and Dark Romanticism with Poe and Hawthorne and Melville, there's still like a moral at play, and there's this idea that there is some justice in the universe. The murderer gets caught. Ambition is punished. The terrible things people do out of sight are brought to the light. You don't see that with Stephen Crane, at least not with this piece. I think it's also worth pointing out that the whole poem is short, and obviously Crane realizes this. It's one thought. There's no real room for interpretation. However, replied the universe, "The fact that you exist has not created in me, the universe, a sense of obligation. I'm not obliged to care for you or even really acknowledge you." So I think when we shout into the void, when we want to think that we're important, that we're significant, that there is a higher power perhaps, we want a reply. We think, wow, wouldn't a reply confirm my beliefs? Wouldn't it be great if God just spoke back to me? Or whatever higher power you subscribe to or don't subscribe to, or whatever it is you worship, wouldn't it be great if something just spoke back? And here, the higher power, the universe, the entity as a whole, does speak back. But what a depressing thing to have spoken back to us. I'm not obliged to care for you. It's really the antithesis to what most religions preach. So you can see how this would be a controversial poem when it comes out, and I'm not saying that Stephen Crane or the speaker in this poem is correct in the ultimate sense here. It is not the worldview that I personally subscribe to as a God-fearing Christian. But that doesn't mean I reject the poem outright or don't think that it has merit or value. In many ways, the universe is unfair. It's not obliged to care for you. And I think if you examine most ideas of religion, you'll find that the world that we live in, very much like the universe here, is not obliged to care for us. The idea of care comes from our fellow humans or from God. So I think even all these years later, A Man Said to the Universe is still a rather shocking poem. It accomplishes exactly what Crane set out to do. And whether you believe that this is all there is or not, you still have to do something with it. You still have to move forward. And I think the sequel to this poem, what Crane's asking us here, is what do we do with this? And one answer is to continue to learn and grow and search for answers. And I think if you're watching this video, you're probably the type of person who does that. So I wish you luck in finding whatever it is you're searching for. And I want to encourage you that I truly believe that even if the universe as a whole doesn't care for you, there are people in this universe that do. That might have been a little deep if you were just here to figure out something for your homework. But anyway, that's what it was. Happy reading. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.